it doesn't matter. How I start this video, what I say in this video, people are going to be absolutely livid. There is an all-out war going on in the gacha community right now. It's actually been going on for over a month as the three top gacha games all duke it out for global supremacy. You've no doubt seen the PvP going on in the community. If you're a Genshin Impact fan, Wuthering Waves is dead on arrival. It cannot possibly compete. If you're a Wuthering Waves fan, then it dethroned Genshin Impact. It had a higher global gross earning this month than Genshin Impact did. If you're a Honkai Star Rail fan, you don't care because you're still #1. And there's really nothing any gacha game can do right now to change that. Despite all of this drama, despite all of this outrage, I have decided to address not only Wuthering Waves' global Chinese revenue over the last month, but also Genshin's, also Honkai Star Rail's, compare them all, compare each of their first months, each of their second months, including Tower of Fantasy, because Tower of Fantasy is a game that is often compared to both Genshin and Wuthering Waves in an active effort to showcase how each respective game did. Once again, I am well aware there are going to be numerous people upset with this, but everything I state, everything I claim is publicly accessible information. I want to start this off with Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact in its first month on October 2020 managed to earn $250 or almost $250 million within its first month, making it one of the largest mobile game launches ever. To date, no game has come close to dethroning its $250 million first month. Not Honkai Star Rail, not Tower Fantasy, not Wuthering Waves. Everyone hopes that the next big gacha will be the gacha to dethrone Genshin Impact, when the long and short of it is, there probably won't be. A game doesn't need to earn more, have more players than Genshin Impact to be successful. There are plenty of games out there, Arknights, Blue Archive, Nikke, that are all incredible successes. They might not be hitting Genshin Impact numbers, sure, but that doesn't make them any less significant, nor does it make them unsuccessful. In Honkai Star Rail's first month, it managed to accumulate $20 million in revenue. According to Google, Star Rail released on April 26th. There were 30 days in April 2023, which means it made $20 million in 5 days globally. I could not find anywhere online that reported on its first 5 days within China. Tower of Fantasy released globally on August 11th, 2022. It went on to earn $26 million globally. This was over a 20-day period. So Honkai Star Rail technically made what Tower of Fantasy made in 20 days in 5. But with regards to Tower of Fantasy in this instance, and in all instances, for the entirety of this video, Tower of Fantasy released globally only, did not release in China at the same time. It actually released in China the year before, in 2021. So the game had already existed for at least half a year, 2/3 of a year before releasing globally, which definitely impacted its total revenue. Wuthering Waves released on May 22nd, 2024, and went on to make $24.8 million globally. That was over a 9-day period. Globally, at least in this instance, also comprises both China and global. This means that Honkai Star Rail in its first 5 days definitely made more than Wuthering Waves did in its first 9 days, even if China made half of what global made. But again, just because Honkai Star Rail made over $20 million does not make another game that made roughly $20 million or less successful or less relevant or less significant. I just wanted to keep stressing that because repeatedly across social media, people are claiming if a game does not reach Hoyo levels of success, then it is not a success. And that right there is just absolute horseshit. There are dozens of incredibly successful gacha games out there that are making millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, yet not nearly as much as Hoyo's games do. Each game had very different release windows though. Some had only 5 days of a month, some had multiple weeks of a month, so it's not entirely fair to compare them. Comparing 5 days of Honkai Star Rail to 9 days of Wuthering Waves and like 20 days of Tower of Fantasy isn't a fair and accurate comparison. What we can make a fair and accurate comparison to though is month 2 of each game's earnings. And that is where things are definitely more defined. Genshin Impact closes in on $400 million in its first 2 months, averaging more than $6 million a day. Given month 1 made nearly $250 million, this means that month 2 made almost $150 million. This is a monstrous amount, but it does include China and global. Month 2 of Honkai Star Rail shows a very different number. Star Rail made $82 million globally and $57 million within China, totaling $139 million, almost the equivalent of what Genshin made, potentially equally as much as Genshin made. Once again, an absolutely monstrous number. Tower of Fantasy in its second month made $20 million. That's slightly less than month 1, but still a very impressive number. Wuthering Waves in its second month made $45.5 million, which, given the current state of Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact, is pretty good, but comparing it to the second month of release for both respective games is significantly lower. Globally, Wuthering Waves is doing very good. Is it hitting crazy numbers like Genshin and Honkai Star Rail did? No. Once again, that is perfectly fine. It doesn't need to hit those numbers to be a successful game, a well-received game, a popular game. Fate Grand Order makes an average of 10 to 20 million. Nikke makes an average of 10 to 20 million. Arknights, Blue Archive, they all make tens of millions of dollars. They're all monolithic successes all around the world. One area that Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and Tower of Fantasy differ to the other games listed though, is that they are all cross-platform compatible. They are all PC, mobile, and some of them are console games as well. What this means is that potentially half of their active players play on other platforms outside of mobile, which means, in theory, revenue here could be double, not just for Wuthering Waves, but for every single game. Star Rail could have made almost 200 million this month. Genshin could have made 120, 130 million. Wuthering Waves could have made over 100 million last month. Tower of Fantasy could have actually made, 400K last month. My point is, these numbers are for mobile. They are not encompassing every single platform, because if you also include in PlayStation for Star Rail and Genshin, it probably made a few dozen million more. And I don't mean to attempt to defend Wuthering Waves here or Tower of Fantasy, but they both have significantly faster base combat than games like Star Rail and Genshin, and therefore play a lot better on PC than they do on mobile. Tower of Fantasy is known to earn multiples more on PC than it does on mobile. By that very same logic, a game with as fast and as complex combat as Wuthering Waves, it is also plausible to expect them to make double or triple or more via PC as well, especially given a lot of mobile players are still having issues playing the game on the mobile platform and are having significantly better performance on PC. So I would double all this revenue minimum to include PC for each of the games, and in the instance of Tower of Fantasy and Wuthering Waves, I might increase it again to make up for the larger portion of players playing via PC. Unfortunately, we'll never know specific numbers because they just don't disclose this. From what I've seen and what I've heard online though, Wuthering Waves, since that is what this video is more or less about, comparing it to the release of other games, Wuthering Waves has been incredibly well received globally. China did not seem to enjoy it as much as we did. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I know revenue is down in China, and that is surprising given revenue in China for Gacha games is typically higher than their global counterparts. I don't know if this is going to change, if Kudo will make alterations to appease Chinese players and we'll see a boost there. Who knows? All we know is Wuthering Waves doubled their first month revenue. Honkai Star Rail increased by several times. Genshin Impact actually made less in their second month than they did in their first month. Tower of Fantasy made less in their second month than they did their first month. But this month, globally, Wuthering Waves was the number 2 highest grossing gacha game. If we factor in China, then it was number 3. Regardless of how you look at it, $45.5 million is a phenomenal number, but even earning half of that is a cause for success and celebration. A lot of people didn't expect Wuthering Waves to even top 20 million, so seeing it hit just shy of 50, potentially 100 if you factor in PC, is crazy and 100% shattered a lot of player expectation. Now, if you're not interested in any of this, absolutely no problem. I got you covered with 2 different videos on screen right now. Might be more up your alley.